Hey guys, welcome back to Adlib Talk, and this is my review for Season 4 of The Last Kingdom. Before we start with this review, as always, don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, and please do consider subscribing, as those are the two main ways you can help support my channel right here at Adlib Talk. Cheers, and let's get right into that review. So The Last Kingdom is a British historical fiction TV series that is based on Bernard Cornwell's The Saxon stories. Having now reached its fourth and penultimate season, we start to see Uthred's loyalties tested yet again. On the one hand, we have Uthred, who sort of wants to reclaim his birthright, Bebbanburg, which had been taken from him since pretty much the beginning of the series, from his uncle, where he also has to take on a new antagonist, who is this new character called Wihtgar. However, at the same time, more important events are taking place, and obviously, as can be expected, they will sort of involve Uthred himself, as he will be swept up right into the thick of things. Uthred and Athelflead will be forced to take on the Viking armies of Cnut, who, allied with Brida, take on the Saxon forces in the Battle of Tettenhall, all the while waiting for Edward's reinforcements. Now, I will not speak more about events of Season 4, as that would lead to unnecessary spoilers for you to what actually happens. However, I would like to comment a little about the sort of the quality of the storytelling that is going on in this series. Now, Bernard Cornwell, who is an extremely successful author, who is the author of these Saxon stories upon which the series is based, has written numerous best-selling series, such as the Napoleonic Wars series, which are based on the story of, obviously invented, Richard Sharp, who is a rifleman, and he is most well known for his ability to sort of incorporate these fictional characters into real life events, and that has always been something I've really enjoyed about his books. I've read a ton of his books. Another thing I like about Bernard Cornwell is his sort of very fast-paced storytelling. It's very page-turning. It's going to make you want to read, and then basically once you've started one of his books, it won't let you go. And that sort of style has been successfully replicated in this series. I think that's, with some exceptions, this series has some pretty fast-paced and pretty interesting storytelling, which is one of the big benefits of this series and one of the big things that makes this actually a very watchable series. More or less, there are very few, if any, filler episodes in this series and in this season. Having read most of the Saxon series books, I must be honest that when I heard about the series coming out, I was really skeptical about it. And sure, especially I was worried about the sort of ability of the series to showcase the sort of like big, large-scale events with the massive battles. And true, Season 1 and Season 2 were a little sort of bare bones. However, by Season 3, Netflix had picked up this series and obviously invested some money into it. And that really showed in Season 3 with sort of bigger battles and the series going much bigger and much bloodier and bolder. So many more extras participating in the battles and giving this whole series a more sort of grander feeling, which is a big improvement. Season 4 yet again sees a big improvement and is another great season of sort of Saxon versus Viking battles and also politics. Now, as I mentioned before, episode 4 sees our first grand battle of the season, and this is a spectacular one. The fast-paced storytelling up to episode 4 is pretty much breakneck, incredibly intoxicating. Up to episode 4, we basically had already seen Uthred attempting to reclaim his birthright, Bebbanburg. He sort of participates in the battle with the united Christian forces taking on the pagan forces of Cnut, and this battle then leaves sort of very far-reaching consequences on most of our major characters, some who end up much better than others. Needless to say, many major characters will see their story end here, this series is quite well known for killing off its characters, and yet again season 4 sees a lot of pretty important characters dying as well. However, after the 4th episode, slightly to my disappointment, the series seems to sort of slow down a little bit too much and gets bogged down a little with the politics of it all for these sort of few episodes before the last 2 or 3 episodes, which once again light up and sort of introduce us to the major end game antagonist and brings out once more the best of Uthred. Uthred, our main protagonist of this series, is slowly becoming one of my personal favorite TV characters. Alexander Draymond as Uthred is one of the major reasons why you will want to watch this series and why it's such a fun series. As much as this is a series of sort of dealing with a lot of death and a lot of suffering, and it's a very, very serious tone here, but Draymond's charisma always manages to keep the tone from becoming far too dark. He is helped greatly by his motley crew of misfits, including Finan, Citric, Uthred, and the constant banter between this group never gets old and feels real. It feels real banter you would hear between a group of friends in the Dark Ages. We meet many other recurring characters as well. Most important is our new king, King Edward. Now, David Dawson's performances as Alfred were pretty much the best of the whole series, and attempting to take his sort of role was never going to work out, right? King Edward has a very different type of personality. He is sort of petty, gets emotional very easily, and our new king unfortunately feels pretty much a downgrade to what we had with Alfred, both story-wise but also performance-wise by the actor himself. Dawson's ability to remain empathetic to his viewers despite his character's many villainous actions sort of is extremely hard to replicate. Talking about other average and poor performances, that by Millie Brady as Athelflead is another rather unconvincing take, this time on the Great Warrior Queen. She evokes none of the character her lover Uthred evokes, and that is another weak point for this series. Other returning characters include Lady Ailswith with Eliza Butterworth, as expected by now, giving us another great performance as the cunning and scheming now widow of Alfred. She has found herself in a very weak position, but if I were a betting man, I would never bet against her. We also see Father Boyaka once more, and as always, he is the beating heart of this series. Finally, when it comes to important recurring characters, I have to pass a small comment about Brida. Now, Brida has always been one of my favorite characters of the series, and Emily Cox gives us yet another fiery performance as our Viking anti-hero. Unfortunately, events in Season 4 have not been kind to Brida, and this has led her to become quite a loose cannon and tread quite the line between anti-hero to villain, and that was quite a disappointing turn of events for Brida, who, as I said, was one of my favorite characters of the series. To wrap up, I would also like to mention some of the new characters we see introduced this season, some better than others. First of all, we have Edith, who was the mistress of Lord Ethelred and the younger sister of Eardwulf, the commander of Lord Ethelred's household guards. Stephanie Martini and Jamie Blackley both give us pretty decent performances in the first season here, and they were surprisingly important for the sort of events which take place throughout the whole season, and so that was interesting to watch. Finally, on a less important scale, we are finally introduced to Uthred's children. Young Uthred, acted by Finn Elliott and Stiora, Ruby Hartley, bring a new dynamic and a new challenge to Uthred himself. This was done well, and I thought it was quite an enjoyable subplot in Season 4. At the end of the day, Season 4 of The Last Kingdom was another great season of sword clashes, drama, betrayal, love, and so much more. With pretty much above average performances by the majority of the cast, improved production value with some spectacular battle sequences and an interesting plot with many twists and turns. Whilst Not as good as season 3, which was this series' best season. I still congratulate series producer Nick Murphy and all the cast and crew involved in the production of this series for giving us yet another highly enjoyable season. And at the end of the day, I give The Last Kingdom a 4 out of 5 and my recommendation for anyone who enjoys historical fiction. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that review. If you did, don't forget to leave a like on this video and please do consider subscribing. Cheers, and as Uthred always likes to say, destiny is all.